boys and girls. I'm going to go ahead and go over your social studies assignment for lesson 204. You're going to start by clicking into your social studies course, and we are looking at lesson 204, which is under module 2. So you'll open up that module 2 folder, and you will click on the blank page icon for the lesson 2.04, cultural changes. So you'll click on that. That's going to open up the presentation. You'll click on the presentation. It'll open it up in a bigger format for you. Take a second to load. You'll go through all of this lesson, reading about the cultural changes that occurred due to the building of the Transcontinental Railroad. You'll obviously go through and watch the videos and complete any of the tasks or activities throughout. You'll learn about the Native Americans and how they were impacted because of the Transcontinental Railroad. You'll have a little activity to complete in your notebook or on some paper. Then you'll learn about the Chinese workers and how they were impacted while building the Transcontinental Railroad. You'll have another activity to complete in your notebook or on some paper. You've got your review and reflection. Don't forget your reflection piece is to go back to your historian's journal and answer any of those questions that you might have on the K and the W section. It even gives you a hint to what document to look at. This one wants you to look at document 5 and add anything that you can from what you learned in this lesson. And then on the last page, you'll come across your assignment, which is 2.04. There's also a rubric that goes along with it, so make sure you take a look at that. I'm going to open up the assignment. And for this assignment, it's a one-page assignment. Give it a second here to load. So let's take a look at the lesson directions. In this lesson, you learned how Native Americans and Chinese immigrants were affected by the building of the Transcontinental Railroad. For this assignment, you will choose the role of either a Native American or a Chinese immigrant during the 1860s and write a diary entry about a day in your life while the railroad is being constructed around you. Tell what you are doing, what is happening around you, and how you are feeling about the Transcontinental Railroad based on what you have learned during this lesson. Explain how your life has changed because of this railroad. Your diary entry should reveal whether you are a Native American or a Chinese immigrant based on the description of your day. There's a little template here for you to fill out. You've got the date. Make sure you choose a date from the 1860s. The month and the day don't matter, but just make sure that your year is within the 1860s because that's the time frame we're talking about. You've got your Dear Diary, and then this middle section here is where you're going to write about what your life was like and what was going on around you while the railroad was being constructed. In the directions here, it gives you specific things to focus on. You're going to choose a role of either a Native American or a Chinese immigrant. So that's your first step. Are you going to pretend to be a Native American, or are you going to pretend to be a Chinese immigrant that came during the 1800s? You're going to write the diary entry about a day in your life while the railroad is being constructed around you. So what was your life like? Be sure to use information from the lesson to describe what your life was like. Then it has some things that you specifically need to focus on. Tell what you are doing. What is happening around you? Use the pen here. Tell what you're doing. What is happening around you? How are you feeling about the railroad? Use all of that information from the lesson. Explain how your life has changed because of the railroad. And make sure that the information that you're providing, it is clear of whether you chose to be a Native American or a Chinese immigrant. At the bottom, At the bottom here, you could write your friend, you could write sincerely, um, best wishes. This is just where you're going to end your diary entry. And then you'd put your name. So I put Mrs. Susserell. Okay, so just to recap, you've got the date, anytime from the 1860s, dear diary, what was your life like? What were you experiencing? How are you feeling? How did your life change? That's all going to go here in the middle as a diary entry, and then you'll end your diary entry with a closing like your friend, Mrs. Susserell. When you're done, and you'd obviously put your name, not my name. When you're done, you'll go back to the Buzz lesson. You'll go to your next activity arrow. And remember, with social studies, you have to scroll to the bottom. If you don't scroll, you don't see the submission box. You've got to scroll down, and then you'll click on the blue plus button that you'll see on your screen, and you'll attach your work. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out.